Hello, ladies and gentlemen, metalheads around the world, and welcome to, I can't believe I'm saying this, the 40th episode of the Horsemen Podcast. I can't believe it. 40 episodes, 2 years. Granted, we don't do it every week, but when we do it, it's always something special, and boy, do we have a special episode for you guys today. Real quick, to introduce everybody, I'm Levi. You should know me. You're on the channel right now, so... But right next to me, to my left here, Ricky, aka Horror Master.
Yellow.
Sadly, you can't see his lovely mug, but you can at least hear him. And from Portugal, Artur Castanha.
Yellow!
And last but certainly not least, our biggest guest we have had on this show to date, from Exciter, Diemonds, Aggressor, and of course from our favorite metal channel, BANGERTV, Mr. Daniel Dekay.
Hello?
How are you today, sir?
I'm alright, man. I didn't know this was video. I'm hungover. I'm wearing the same clothes I was wearing yesterday. This is me.
Don't worry.
Hashtag woke up like this, no makeup. What's going on?
It's like I said, you look fine.
Yeah, well, I don't even notice a difference.
You should see the goddamn black rings around my eyes, bruh.
Don't worry.
It's okay, I've got
Absolutely.
coffee. We're good.
The banger mug, the big banger mug. If only I had a metal mug. One mug I've been wanting to get is a death mug, like the Scream Bloody Gore mug. I know those are out there somewhere.
I have a mug.
I have one. I have one that
small
was
mug.
made. I have one that was made by a friend of mine, which has the cover from Nightfall in Middle Earth by Blind Guardian.
Damn.
It was made by a friend of mine.
Sweet. So, for this week's episode, we got a couple of things going on. First, we got a little interview with Mr. DK to kind of pick his brain a little bit about all things metal, all things... everything, honestly. But, of course, afterwards, we're going to be doing our traditional shtick, and that's top 10 list, because who doesn't like doing that? And for this week, as you saw on the title, we're doing top 10 British bands. And that's going to be interesting considering, well, England, the home of heavy metal, thanks Black Sabbath. So, but before we get into all the lists, so, Mr. Daniel Dekay.
That's me.
Yep, that is you. So, figured we'd start off...
Mister, am I in trouble? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, we're interrogating you. Yeah, we're interrogating you. But anyways, so to begin this episode, I figured all of us have some questions for you. And I shall begin. Pretty much start at the very beginning. Like, because I always ask fellow metalheads how they got into metal, because everybody's story is always different. Like, my story it was my love of pro wrestling and video game soundtracks, and then it just grew from there. But for you, Mr. DK, how did you get into metal in the very beginning?
It was pretty organic. I have a rocker dad. So growing up, there were not only like driving in his car and around the house, there was great music playing, but if I was ever able to sneak into the man cave of the basement that he had, that was off limits after a certain hour, there was a cool collection of vinyl. That's where titles like Fistful of Metal, Violence and Force, Number of the Beast, Kiss's Destroyer, which was massive for me. You can imagine being a 6-year-old kid and pulling out the LP cover for Destroyer.
Oh, yeah.
How life-changing that could be. So, I mean, he loves to tell the story. I mean, he tells it better than me. You probably should just interview him. He loves to tell the story that, he trained me. I was 3 years old sitting in the fucking front seat of his IROC Zed. And, and I fucking singing along, "Excuse me while I kiss this guy." He had me fucking singing Hendrix, and I was like this little fucking baby. He had me on the classic rock radio shit. So, music's always been there, man. And the heavy music, my dad was cool because even though he was from an era where 70s rock and that type of sounding music reigns supreme, he always told me, Daniel, I will always take Iron Maiden over the Who. And that really resonated with me, and that was kind of the mentality that my dad kind of instilled in me with music and all things heavy. So, while some people were growing up on the classic rock stuff, I was fortunate to hear, like, Judas Priest Sin After Sin was the first cassette I ever owned, man.
Ooh.
Wow.
Like, yeah, like I remember I went, my dad gave me Sin After Sin on cassette, and he's like, hey, I want you to listen to this band. I love how, like, I'm always proud to say I still have that cassette, and I'm looking at the wall of cassettes, and it's not here. But he gave it to me, and he's like, I want you to listen to this. I want you to listen to this. And I remember I had it in my Walkman for like a week or 2 weeks or whatever. And then he came to me and he says, all right, so what did we think of Judas Priest Sin After Sin? Do you have a favorite song? And I said to him, yeah, of course I do. I have this song on the second side I love called Diamonds and Rust. And he's like, you're goddamn right it is.
Ooh.
Oh.
You're goddamn right it is. And yeah, man, that was that, man. As if I can't find that cassette. I thought it was sitting right here, but apparently it's fallen into the ether. But yeah, Sin After Sin being your first cassette. Oh, I'm so dumb. It's right here.
Fuck yeah.
Oh.
Ooh.
That is
It's a rarity and a beaut.
that is my copy from childhood. That is the one. This is the one, the Chromium Dioxide, Judas Priest, Sin After Sin. And I take it back. Diamonds and Rust is the second song on the first side. But that was the tune, man. And he was impressed that I actually listened to it and, like, was able to, as a kid, pick a favorite song like that. And, dude, from there, it spiraled out of control. Kiss came out with a new record in 96. It was like a perfect age for me to be like going to a record store and buying a new album. Mm-hmm. So that was also huge for me as well. Kiss instantly became my favorite band. But yeah, gotta give all the props to Dad for getting me into the classic tunes. And then I also have to give props to my dad for giving me someone to, like, of course, hate your parents in your teenage years and rebel against everything your parents wanted you to do. So I was like, fuck this, I don't like your stupid 80s metal. I like Napalm Death and Carcass, man.
Oh yeah.
Fuck you, dude. And yeah, so then on my own I got into extreme music, and I started soft too with my extreme music. It was bands like Venom, the more primitive of the extreme bands that got me into that stuff. But like, dude, once I discovered like black metal and grindcore labels like Earache and Candlelight, oh, dude, it was over.
Mm-hmm. I was very much the same way too. Like, I didn't get into the extreme stuff until high school days, like 8-9 years ago. And it blew me away. Like, I am totally on the same boat. And I also grew up on the classic stuff, mostly from my parents, like The Who and Steve Miller, AC/DC, Van Halen. But then my oldest brother, who sadly passed away 4.5 years ago, he got me into Metallica and Alice in Chains and Pantera. Like, those were our three mutual favorites that we would listen to all the time. So, but yeah, I always like asking that question because everybody's got such a different story. Like, and then for me, like I brought up earlier, pro wrestling back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when they would use some hard rock metal tunes as theme music for their pay-per-views. And then also, especially nowadays with Triple H being such a big metal guy and friends with Lemmy, getting Power Trip some exposure by having their music played on NXT and stuff. But yeah, like everybody's got a different story, and I love that.
I still remember that WrestleMania when Motorhead. It was the year that Motorhead played.
WrestleMania.
I think they did it twice.
18.
17 and 21.
17 or 21.
17, 21, yeah. 17 was the one in
Houston, and 21 was Houston, in LA.
Yeah, I take it back. You guys remember that better than me. I was like, yeah, I recall seeing that on TV.
Okay.
Well, we are all big wrestling nerds, so there's that for you.
Yes. I'm not a wrestling nerd, but I have a lot of friends who work in that organization, so I've been lucky to see some incredible some incredible. What do you call them? Matches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen some cool matches, and I've met some cool people in that world. Wrestling's cool. I love that wrestling is so like adjacent to heavy metal culture.
Absolutely.
A lot of people think it's weird that I'm not into wrestling as much as I should be as such a big metalhead. It's like they're very much intertwined. But for me, it was classic like 80s wrestling. Like the imagery of that is where I think like a lot of my sense of heavy metal style came from. In the early days, the colors and the larger than life characters. Like, in Diemonds, we were all about that, man. It was all about everything was color coordinated, and everything was a show, and everything was over the top, and you couldn't go into the venue with your hair tied up wearing a pair of flip-flops, or else you were kicked out of the band. It's like you get goddamn changed into your outfit in the van, and no one fucking sees you otherwise, you know?
Yeah.
And that's borrowed from wrestling. Is like you got to own that character. You are Triple H, so don't pretend you're not.
You are the Undertaker. You are Stone Cold Steve Austin. You are
like,
everything.
Imagine seeing the Undertaker at the grocery store, and like he had his fucking hair tied up, and he was wearing fucking slacks and shorts. It'd be like, what?
Yeah, that would be so weird.
Yeah.
Polo shirt. No,
It would be a bit the same thing as you would come across King Diamond on the grocery store as well.
Exactly.
Him without the makeup.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to meet them like that. You know,
absolutely
and
not.
One time I met Kiss, they were doing a photo shoot where you could choose. Do you want the photo with them in makeup, or do you want the photo with them out of makeup? And I'm like, are you fucking kidding? I don't want the photo with them out of makeup. Like it's fucking ridiculous. Like I want a photo with my larger than life characters that I grew up adoring.
Absolutely.
Like I want a photo with the Demon, the Catman, the Star Child, and fucking Space Ace. Like I don't want a goddamn photo with some dude named Gene. You know?
Yeah, it's like if you were to meet I don't know, I had the band right now, a band like Mayhem. You want them in their pure black metal, corpse paint, blood all over their face, personas. But if you meet them without their personas, like you're still like it's not the same, but
right,
you know.
Yeah, it is. It is all what it is. But next question that I have for you, Mr. DK, since you are a hell of a guitar player, especially after watching your Twitch streams, and now you just go balls to the wall playing some classics. And also because I actually have a couple of acoustics, even though I'm not very good. I'm more of a drummer, but of course I have them in case I want to mellow out and play some softer stuff. But for you, who were some of the biggest inspirations for you when it came to playing guitar? And I know that's such a broad question, but I'm always curious to know where people's influences lie within their instruments.
Since we're live, I'm gonna just break this news live because it just went on Twitter. Metal Hammer has just announced that this month's cover is a Riley Gale cover, which is and they've just posted the photo of it. It's a black cover. It's just a photo of Riley. It says 86 to 2020. I got goosebumps. That is unbelievable. He's on the fucking cover of Metal Hammer.
I'm gonna have to get that eventually.
Yeah, I hope I can get it too. Luckily, I got a Power Trip shirt coming in the mail. Sadly, it won't be here till October, but hey, I'm just gonna be happy to have it.
And I need to get Nightmare Logic.
Sorry to interrupt. I just thought since we're live that it would be topical to break some live metal news.
Absolutely.
No, it's fine. Okay. It's okay.
Yeah, it's all good.
My guitar influences.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very easy. Ace Frehley, Dimebag, Marty Friedman, Paul Gilbert, George Lynch, Alex Skolnick.
Oh, fuck yeah.
These are the guys. I mean, David Mustard Stain as well, but like...
That's good.
That's a new one.
Yeah, but like Marty for the solos, David and the Mustard Stains for the riffing, and his love of pentatonics, because I mean he really only knows 3 riffs, and they're the same 3 riffs that I know, and I fucking love that. So I'm big on him as well. But yeah, those are my main dudes. Ace will always be number 1 though, man. Ace is always number 1. Dime is easy number 2, and I would say Marty's easy number 3.
Awesome. Because funny enough, Ricky over here, he's a guitar player himself.
I play once in a while. I'm not the biggest guitarist.
Background there.
Yeah, it's a Fender Strat. Got it right there. Yeah, but
you
when it
Dave
comes to
Murray fan?
Yeah, more of an Angus Young fan, which I'm trying to get I want to get a Gibson SG in later because Angus is my idol, my favorite guitarist.
Yeah.
I want to get a Fender SG in the future, but for now I have this my first guitar, Fender Strat. I mean, like I said, I'm not the greatest guitarist. I'm still trying to learn pentatonics and all that, but I can play a tune once in a while.
Yeah, like last night when we were testing your laptop, even though it was hating you on Discord for some reason, you was trying to play Hell's Bells.
Okay.
Funny enough.
Good riff.
But another question that I got here, because since you're a busy man, you're in Exciter, you're in Diemonds, Aggressor, working at Banger TV, how do you manage your time, and as well as doing Twitch, how do you manage your time being involved in all these bands as well as with Banger and doing Twitch? Like, how do you do it?
Okay. So let's address all these things head on. Okay. Aggressor's last show would have been 2014?
It's been a while.
14 or I wish I remembered when it was. We called it The Return of Aggressor, and we did 3 shows. We did Ottawa, Montreal, and Toronto. There's our 3 closest cities to us here in Canada. They're the major hubs that are closest to us.
Right.
So we did like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday type thing there. And that was either 13 or 14. 2013 or 2014, I would say. R.I.P. Aggressor. I know that Metallum still says it's perhaps an active band.
Yeah,
like,
and we're on Metallum all the time. In fact, we play this game that we won't bother you with. But.
In fact, Blaine and I from Banger used to do a podcast together, and his favorite thing to bring up on the podcast was, so DK, so tell me how about Aggressor is still an active band.
That's good.
Oh god.
So so don't believe everything you read on the internet. Truthfully, it's been like 7 years since we played a show or something. I would love to do a reunion or another album with that band. That would be fantastic. We actually talk about it once a year. Every year something happens. We all live in different cities. But every year we're like in the same room. The brothers still play in a band together, so I'll go see the brothers. The Stevenson Bros, they play in a band called Old James. I'll go see them play. And, a couple beers in, we're all fucking hugging and kissing each other. And we're like, God, we got to do a reunion. And it's like that, One night they got drunk, they asked me to join Old James. One night I got drunk, I'm like, I'll fucking quit Diemonds and start Aggressor again, man. Like, it just happens. And we always have these intense 4-hour conversations about it, and then that's it.
Wow.
There's no follow-up. We both wake up the next morning, and it was like a crazy dream, So that's Aggressor. So, I mean, that doesn't take up any of my time. Diemonds has been, I hate to call hiatus, because hiatus is a very blanket term. It could mean a million things, but bottom line with Diemonds is there is no new music in the works. There are no shows planned right now. We played 1 show this year. We played 1 show last year, and we played like 5 shows the year prior or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's been on a very rapid decline. For no reason other than we did it for 10 years, sleeping on floors and fucking moving vehicles and intense outside. And, we really exhausted it. We played almost every major American city 5, 6, 7 times. We did every major Canadian city 8, 10, 12 times. We were relentless with the touring. It was incredible that we created such a small, faithful army of the diehards, as we like to call them. But
good name for a fan base.
Just never exploded the way we wanted it to. And then by the time it did start exploding, at Never Wanna Die, we got nominated for a very high honor in Canada called the Juno Award. It's essentially a Canadian Grammy.
Yeah.
Got nominated for a Juno. We got brought on tour with Steel Panther. It was like our first. We spent our entire career penny pinching.
That's gotta be a hell.
Like we spent
That's gotta be a hell of a party.
Unbelievable. And like we penny pinched our entire career, and we were always concerned about not being able to afford things and never getting hotels. Then all of a sudden we were on a tour with Steel Panther, playing for 2,000 to 3,000 people every single night and flying. We were flying in and out of gigs. Like, we'd never flown for gigs before. You can't afford to fly for gigs. All of a sudden, we were fucking flying and, like, driving between short ones and renting random gear and then returning. Like, it was like, I'd never done a tour like that before. And, like, all that shit started happening, like, too late, if I may. It was, like, the tragic positive stuff. Because it was like, yeah, this is awesome, but, like, we're fucking burnt out on this band, man. Like, we are fucking toast. Priya had other aspirations to do a different project. I had aspirations to do something a little more metal. CC had aspirations to start his own creative business. You know, we all wanted to do other things, and that's exactly what happened. We started doing other things, and as you know, people start growing apart, and next thing you know, Diemonds was reduced to one show a year. So again,
too bad.
Something that takes up a lot of my time, which leads me to Banger TV. Banger TV and Exciter. Those are the two most active things I'm currently working on. Exciter had over 100 shows planned this year that will hopefully just be able to happen next year in 21. That would be the ideal case scenario. With Exciter, I also handle the bulk, if not all, of the management, merchandising, day-to-day operations, social media, interviews, internet presence, deals, contracts, negotiations. It's booking. It's all me. So
you're basically, in a way, a manager.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am a manager who also plays in the band, apparently. When people ask who the manager is, I just say we're self-managed, because at the end of the day, it's their legacy, and I just have the means with my network and my tech skills that I'm able to basically take their vision and manage it. So I mean, it's not like I'm the manager. We manage it. I'm just the one acting on a lot of those things.
Right.
So that takes up a huge portion of my time, as well as with Banger. I'm fortunate to do the videos with them, but I'm also responsible for the day-to-day operations for the Patreon campaign. So that again, another thing that takes up a lot of my time. So to get back my long-winded answer back to your question, how do I find time? I don't know, man. My life is a trail of post-it notes and forgotten memories and forgetting to do shit. But you know, I like to slice a huge fucking piece of cake, whether or not I'm hungry. I often say yes to things and figure out how to fucking accomplish them later. It's really important for me to never turn down an opportunity, because you never know what that opportunity can lead to. So, I mean, that's just that. I love being busy. I'm not the most organized person, though, I will admit, because it's hard to stay fucking organized when you got this much shit on your mind, and the fact that I smoke fucking weed like a chimney. So
Weed metal.
yeah, weed metal. That's me, man. That's the shirt you'll see me wearing on stage every night. And you know, there's a reason for that. It's like fucking I mean, the only constant in my life for 29 years, the only constant in my life has been weed.
Wow.
Women have come and gone. Bands have come and gone. Family and friends, they come and go. Weed, sweet fucking Mary Jane, she always been there for me.
Metal.
As
Yeah.
Black
Forget
Sabbath
metal.
once called it, Sweet Leaf.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Ozzy knew what he was talking about.
So, and then real quick, speaking of Exciter, am I correct in saying that you and the rest of the guys are working on a new album?
Yeah, fuck yeah, we are. Actually, Dan and Al are at the Jam Space in Ottawa today, tracking yet another tune for a demo. They're tracking the drums today for another demo song.
Hell yeah.
Hell
And
yeah.
so, which leads to my final question before Ricky and Artur have any spare questions to have. When can we expect a release date for Exciter?
It's tough. I was telling people this year, 100%. We had a huge tour booked in November across Europe and the US that we were hoping to drop the record and then go on this massive tour. Literally the biggest rooms I will have ever played in my life, aside from open air festivals. But obviously that's not happening. So we're just kind of in this limbo right now, talking with some labels about strategy. Also, I mean, the recording process has been completely slowed down because of COVID. Not only did we live across provincial lines that you weren't allowed to cross for the first 4 months of lockdown, now we're dealing with studios that don't want more than one person at a time. The whole band can't be there while you do everything. And like, fuck, man, well, that's kind of the point of the recording process is I want to sit there while Dan Beeler tracks drums. I want to watch him do vocals. I want to watch Al lay down bass. I want to be there when we're like, oh, fuck, you know what? Let's change this part to this. Like, that's the beauty of the studio is being there and as a band collaborating in the studio. I love that. I hate reading about studio sessions like In Through the Outdoor where like these guys in Zeppelin fucking hated each other and, we're completely absent in the studio and it'd be like Robert Plant going and tracking his vocals overnight alone and, John Paul Jones having to go in there and really hold it down because everyone was absent. Like I hate an absent recording session. I think the coolest part of recording is like just being there. Even if it's not your day, it's like, oh, they're doing overdubs today. I have nothing involved in this. It's like, well, I still want to be there. I want to be there. I want to be part of the process, see it all, hear it all, and experience it all. So it's slowed us down. So when to expect it? I'm saying next year now. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I think it's really worthwhile to not to hold back on releasing a record until you're able to tour it. I know that there's people releasing albums right now, and that's awesome because people are at home and need some new tunes. But I really want to be able to release the album, do it the traditional way. I want to release the album, I want to go on tour, and I want you to come pick it up at the merch table because that is the easiest way to support a band is to buy the music from them. Absolutely. It's great when you go to the record store and buy it, but like we don't see a buck. We don't see a buck from that.
Yeah, and then now I can kind of understand why Carcass decided to delay Torn Arteries until further notice.
Again, I think it's the second delay they've had. Yeah.
But hey, at least we're getting an EP next month, and some of the songs and that song they released, "Living Dead" at the Manchester Morgue,
so good.
Amazing song. It's so funny. Like Ricky, Artur, and I talk about this a lot with the Carcass EP. It's so fun how they say it's songs that got left on the cutting room floor that they felt, quote, weren't good enough for Torn Arteries, which makes me want to think, it makes me want to think Torn Arteries is going to be even better than Surgical Steel. And that's going to be a daunting task because I love Surgical Steel so much.
Yeah, I was going to say Surgical Steel is one of the hottest comeback albums in all of metal ever in the history. It's unbelievable. It's on the same level of Revelation to Oblivion, the Possessed record that came out last year or the year before.
Last year.
Yeah, like unbelievable return to form. I love seeing classic bands put out, especially classic bands that haven't put out a record in a fucking long time. Like the concept of the comeback record, which is exactly what I'm doing with Exciter right now, is fucking, I love that shit. When it slaps, like, dude, that Possessed album, that Carcass record, those are two of the greatest metal comebacks from legendary bands I've ever heard.
Absolutely. So those were my questions. Ricky, do you have anything you'd like to ask real quick?
I think I just have one question, and I'm kind of curious. With 2020 being a lot of metal releases over this past year, not that many concerts, what can you say has been the most anticipated album in 2020 that you've listened to, or the album that has hooked you the most this year in 2020?
Two albums immediately come to mind. My friends from Sweden, Deadlord. Unbelievable Swedish band. It's on Century Media. Their new album came out last week. It's called Surrender. Been a fan of this band since their first 7-inch. Unbelievable band. They haven't quite broken America yet, even though they're fucking 4 albums deep. Four albums deep. But hopefully this is the record that breaks them. Dude, if you love Thin Lizzy, you're gonna fucking love this band. And live, they are one of the most energetic bands I've ever seen live. Their songs are catchy. The songs are great. The twin guitar attack is unreal. The vocals are very unique, just the way that Thin Lizzy was. So I love it. Deadlord's Surrender was hugely anticipated for me and also fucking stuck. Like, I've listened to it 15 times in the last week.
Wow.
Second one that instantly comes to mind is Necrots' new record, Mortal. It is
I need to check that out too.
fucking believable. 10 Crimes Records put out this unreal album. I think it's going to go down as death metal album of the year, 100% hands down.
Bold, definitely a bold statement, because I need to check that out. Because right now, if I had to choose mine, it'd be the new Defeated Sanity. But now, hearing your approval of Necrot, and Necrot's always been a band I've been needing to check out because I'm a big death metal freak. But there's just so much out there. There's just so much out there.
Listen, they've been consistently good. They have. But this record took it to another level, not only on songwriting, but production and just overall presentation. The presentation's fantastic. The promotion was fantastic. I think they gained a lot of fucking new fans with this record.
Sweet. Artur, do you have a spare question or two?
First off, can you hear me okay? All of you?
Yep, you're good.
Thanks.
3 thumbs up.
Okay. This is just a quick statement and also a bit of a question. First off, thank you to you and to all guys in the BANGERTV crew, because without you, probably the podcast wouldn't be going together. It was thanks to BANGERTV that all of us we got together and do the podcast. And if you want to pitch the message to Sam, be our guest. And the other, this is a bit more of a curiosity. I mean, we always hear some genres coming in from several different countries. I mean, what would be the main metal genre coming out of Canada? I mean, you have Rush, which is prog. You have Gorguts, death metal. You have Annihilator, Exciter, Razor, which are mostly thrash. What would you consider the main metal exports from Canada?
Well, I think that you just named, in my opinion, our most classic exports. I think that one of the things that amazes me the most about the classic Canadian exports is how many prolific bands that we had in the early thrash and speed scene. I mean, Anvil, Exciter, Razor, Sacrifice, like Annihilator, Pile Driver. Like these are bands that at the time, whatever genre, respective genres, Annihilator's later. But as much as Exciter was important to the origins of speed and thrash in Canada, Annihilator was important to the origins of prog and thrash in Canada. I think that it mind blows me how strong the early Canadian scene was in that regard. So for classic bands, I mean, you nailed it. Those are our classic exports. That's them. Now something I notice, which is crazy, because like when I was in high school, I thought it was trad metal was the biggest thing. Like we had Cauldron, we had Goathorn, we had Skullfist, we had Diemonds, we had all these bands that I was looking up to in high school that were more, which is crazy because I ended up playing in Diemonds after being a huge fan. We had all these bands that were more like traditional metal and like hard rock meets trad metal meets new wave of British heavy metal. So I thought that was the biggest scene. And for a while, we had a great band called Midnight Malice that I also had the pleasure of playing with live. That was huge. There was huge amount of traditional metal and like, I hate to say glam and hair, but yeah, like 80s inspired trad metal. And that was huge for so long. But in the later years of my life, what I really realized is the strongest, most relevant scene right now in Canada is extreme metal. There is unbelievable death metal coming out of here. And not just death, like not just like old school death metal. I'm talking like modern ass fucking face punching death metal, gore grind, porno grind, all your extremes, black metal, old sounding projects, new sounding projects, tech death. It's like anything on that verge of extreme is fucking huge out of Canada. Like Canada, we have, especially in this area in Ontario, we have like a 2-day death metal festival, all local underground bands.
Wow.
It's crazy, man. And the Canadian music scene's not that huge. So the fact that we have enough extreme death metal bands and death metal adjacent bands to have a 2-day festival dedicated to that, 300 people go to in the underground. Like, that's a big fucking deal here. So I've always found Ottawa, where I grew up, like, dude, there was, for as many amazing thrash shows and traditional metal shows that I was going to, for as many times as I was going to see fucking, Creator or Death Angel in a tiny venue, there was tons of people packing into even smaller venues to see a grindcore show or to see a death metal show. And I really think that Canada has an incredible and the most relevant export right now is our extreme music. And dude, I mean, can you blame us? We have 6 months a year where you can't fucking go outside.
Right.
It's like the grimmest, coldest winters. It's like fucking unbelievably grim during the winter here sometimes. Sometimes it's minus 40. It's like you literally, it's like if you're going outside, you're unrecognizable because you're so bundled up. You're like, you look like fucking Kenny from South Park, It's like unbelievable.
Yep.
So, I mean, that breeds, in my opinion, a little bit of anger and darkness, but also encourages people to fucking sit inside and fucking work on music.
Absolutely.
It's a little bit the Scandinavian mentality that we have here in Europe.
Absolutely. It's 150 million% the same concept. And that's, another reason why so many great fucking bands out of Scandinavia, extreme bands out of Scandinavia, right?
Oh yeah.
And then what's great, also what's great with where I'm in Ohio, Daniel, you're rocking Skeleton Witch, one of the few bands from Ohio that ever broke through.
Athens.
Yeah, good old Athens, which ain't too far away from me. It's about 45 minutes to an hour from my place. So, but yeah, like, especially like the weather here. When it's hot, it is hot. When it's cold, it is fucking cold.
You're absolutely right. Yeah,
like,
I've spent a good chunk of my time in Ohio. Aggressor toured with this band called Vindicator, who are from South Amherst, and they're like incredibly great friends of ours. And I've stayed at their place in Ohio, like in South Amherst. I stayed at that family home at least 3 or 4 times over the years with Diemonds and Aggressor. So I mean, I love Ohio. I've played all over Ohio because when we toured with Vindicator, of course, they're an Ohio band, so there was a couple extra little Ohio, small little cities that you know that might not be on a normal tour. Right. Plus the obvious, the Clevelands and the goddamn all the major cities, right? You gotta do that shit too. Toledo.
Absolutely.
I don't know how many times I've played fucking Toledo.
Oh yeah, and funny enough, out of like the states people in the group, mine's the closest to Canada because you just got Lake Erie separating Ohio and Ontario. So
it's like fucking 8 hours I can be in Ohio, man. It's fucking not even.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
at least it ain't like Texas. When it's hot, it's hell, and when it's cold, it's hot.
Yeah. Can't go wrong with Texas. But so, unless anybody else has any extra questions, we're going to move on real quick because Daniel, he's got to be somewhere soon. But since we are doing top 10 British bands for this episode, I figured why not let Mr. DK start us off with his list. And man, I feel like we're going to kick ourselves right in the ass.
Yeah. We do that all the time.
It should just, I mean, you should just do a top 7, not a top 10, because every single person is going to have Maiden, Motorhead, Priest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't have Maiden, Motorhead, Priest, you didn't do a top British bands list. I'm sorry.
Sabbath.
And okay, so it's a top 6 list.
Top 6, yeah.
So here's my top 6. Here's my top 6 after Maiden, Motorhead, Priest, Sabbath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go Def Leppard for the first 2 records. Absolutely classics.
Yes.
Let's go Angel Witch.
Oh.
Let's go UFO.
Oh, UFO.
Classic.
I got that one.
Go Satan, obviously. T-Rex. Some Bolin, gotta get that in there. Zeppelin.
Of
Zeppelin,
course.
my classic rock gods.
Of course.
Zeppelin.
And my earache heroes, Carcass. Let's go for them.
Absolutely.
They're on my list.
They're on mine too, so there you have it. Wowie, yowie, wowie, as Bray Wyatt would say.
Yowie wowie.
But yeah, thank you so much, Daniel, for stopping by this episode. It was such an honor to have you on. Our biggest guest we've had thus far.
My pleasure, dude.
Thank you very much. And
Thank you very much.
And you're going live on Twitch tonight. Am I correct?
Yes, I'll be live on Twitch at 4 p.m. Eastern.
Okay, I'll try and catch it because I'll be at work at the time. But hey, sometimes where I work, nothing happens. I'm just on YouTube or Twitch all day, so I'll try my best to catch up on that. So there you go. But anything you want to plug real quick before you go?
Man, just check out the Twitch channel. It's been growing rapidly, and I'm real stoked to be doing that Twitch thing. It's saving my ass in a year when I had a lot of shows planned and then all of a sudden had no shows planned. So at least I'm getting music for some amazing people on the internet as well. Got a merch store that's attached to the Twitch channel. We got heavy metal t-shirts that I've designed, stickers, guitar picks, all the usual stuff. All the any purchases off that is real helpful. I make it all myself. I ship it all myself. And just very DIY, man. So check me out on Twitch. Check me out there. Hit me up on the Instagrams, the Twitters, all the things.
Yep.
And dude, thank you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Artur, Ricky, Levi,
Thank you
so much for having me on, man.
Thank you.
A surprise video podcast to start my morning off.
Yeah. But hey, you're welcome to come back anytime you're available. You're always the door is always open.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much, man. I will catch y'all real soon.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Enjoy the rest of your chat.
We will.
Thanks.
Because now it's going. Because now the extra fun, like the best fun, just happened. Now it's time for the bonus fun.
Daniel Dekay, everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you. And it's still amazing. Like Ricky's still in shock of how I managed to pull this off. It just happened. Like
We all are.
just
We all
was
are.
on Twitch. Just was on his Twitch, chatting away, having fun. I bring up the podcast and ask him, "Hey, is there any possibility of you coming on?" Send me an email and we're good. And we emailed and lo and behold, it happened.
And even Daniel is a very down-to-earth guy.
Amazing. I would
One
love to
step-
have him back sometime.
One step closer to Sam Dunn. We're one step closer.
I already plugged in. I already plugged in the message.
Yes, so
to Daniel.
we'll see. We'll see how
Yeah.
that goes. We'll see how that goes. But
All right.
so now that we got to hear Daniel's list, very interesting list, really good one. A lot of rock bands I forgot about, like T-Rex and so
And
on and so
UFO,
forth.
too.
And UFO. How could I forget UFO? But now it's time for our lists, and I figured I'll
If you don't
begin.
mind, I can go. If you don't mind, I can go first because
Yes.
in a way, this is a bit my genre,
Yeah.
so to say.
And real
My
quick,
honorable
Honorable
men-
mentions.
And real quick, just for people watching in the chat, starting on this episode, we're changing the format of how we're doing the top 10s. So instead of like going one number at a time every person, we're going to do our whole lists in turns. But then at the end, we're going to take into consideration everyone's list to come up with the definitive Horsemen Podcast approved top 10. Just to let everybody know.
so-
Just kind of make it a little bit more chaotic, because I love chaos in this form.
Oh God.
But anyways, Artur,
So does
go
Professor
ahead.
Chaos. So does Professor Chaos.
I am Professor Chaos here. You won't like messing with me. But go on.
So, in a way, as I said, this is a bit my genre because I'm mostly a new wave of British heavy metal fan. I started out with Iron Maiden. Spoiler, it's on our lists, possibly.
Yep.
But my honorable mentions are Diamond Heads, if not for Lighting of the Nations and for giving inspiration to Metallica.
Yes.
Honorable mention. I
Yep.
forgot about Diamond.
I come.
And here's the gap.
I knew this was gonna happen.
A very underrated band, but they were among the first all-female groups and the band that toured with Motorhead in the early stages. Girls' School.
Shit.
I also have Tigers of Pantang, being a part of that new wave of British heavy metal scene. I also have Raven, a very good example in the speed metal genre. This one is a bit of my own genres, especially in the doom, kind of blackened doom or folky doom, which is Winter Filleth. And I also have Jethro Tull, but Jethro Tull is mostly because of my father's preference, is one of my father's favorite bands.
Yes.
And I also have Bruce Dickinson's first band, Samson.
Ooh, Samson.
Went deep. You went deep on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For my honorable mentions, I guess I could say pretty much most of Artur's honorable mentions could be there. But, but for my honorable mentions that I had listed, so I got Witchfinder General, one of the...
It's on my list.
One of the pioneers of Doom. Yeah,
Along with Cathedral.
Oh, I did have Diamond Head on my honorable mentions. What was I thinking? Of course I had them on my honorable mentions. I thought I forgot about them, but no, I did have them on the list. I got My Dying Bride.
Oh, I forgot them. Bam!
Uh-oh, Ricky.
They're my honorable mentions.
Oh, okay. So not on the actual list, so we're safe from murder for now.
For now.
So yeah, I mentioned Witchfinder General, Diamond Head, My Dying Bride, Evil. Probably,
they're on my list.
Probably, in my opinion, out of all the bands that come out in the thrash revival in the mid 2000s, one of the top 3 best, along with perhaps.
I would say that to me, and I forgot to put him here, but Onslaught is a bit better than Evil, but that's just my opinion.
They are on my list, so there you go.
And it's funny that we were talking about Onslaught yesterday, remember?
Yeah, we were. But yeah, Evil, Diamond Head, Witchfinder General, My Dying Bride. I'm going to go with Cancer, one of the most underrated death metal bands of all time. Thrash, but you listen to those first 2 albums, To the Gory End, and especially Death Shall Rise, both produced by Scott Burns. Death Shall Rise, Atmore sound itself. And I always found that album, production-wise, to be cool. Like, they used the same drums as Sepultura did on Arise, hence why the drums sound so similar to those 2 albums. But yeah, James Murphy as guest second guitarist, and that's an amazing death metal album. And they're still going strong today. So there you have it with that.
True.
Cradle of Filth.
They're on my list.
Of course, one of the founding fathers of extreme gothic metal, symphonic black, whatever you want to call them. And then so My Dying Bride, Cancer, Evil, Diamond Head, Cradle of Filth, Witchfinder General. I also got Saxon.
Oh! They're a tie for my number 3.
Oh!
They're a tie for my number 3.
They're my honorable mentions. Saxon are my honorable mentions.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with Saxon.
I have 3 bands in my number 3, and possibly the other 2 we will have in common.
Yeah. And then my final honorable mention, which I'm slightly shocked Artur didn't bring them up, Ackercocky.
I'm not a big fan of Ackercocky.
Yeah. But I really like what they do. Their 3-way combination of black metal, brutal death metal, and prog, bringing all those elements together. It's almost like as if you took Tool, mixed it with Mayhem, and Suffocation. And you get Ackercocky.
And the guy, Jason Mendoza, his parents were from Portugal. He said in several interviews that his parents were originally from Portugal, but they immigrated to England.
That is incredible. But those are my honorable mentions. Ricky, time for yours.
Okay. I try to go really diverse on my list. A lot. I try to think of all the subgenres England has given us over the years, even because some people debate that England or the America's the biggest markets in metal. I think they're both very good arguments, but I always go to the Britain side. So on mine, first of all, I have a tie. I have a tie between Napalm Death and Carcass.
They're on my list.
The reason I have them both together, is the influence that they have not only on death metal, but eventually grindcore bands like Suffocation, Repulsion. You know, the big influence of all the deathcore, grindcore, all the
gore grind
subgenres.
As far as Carcass is concerned,
and especially the political scene being Napalm Death being very political in certain aspects.
Exactly. So I had to put them on the list. Next up, one of the influencers of what will later become power metal, Rainbow.
Number 4.
I
Number
forgot
4.
Rainbow.
Number
Of course, everyone knows Rainbow who they are. If not, you're not. What the hell? I mean, you
Damn
have
it.
Richie Blackmore.
Jimmy Bain, Cozy Powell, Danica Carey, Richie Blackmore, and Ronnie James Dio.
Of course, you have Ronnie James fucking Dio, who eventually will become later the lead vocalist of Black Sabbath, who will later become a solo artist. So,
Yeah.
come on. Next up, I have one of the few bands from the first British invasion, The Who.
Mm.
Ooh.
The Who I've never always been a fan of The Who, but I can appreciate what The Who have done over the years, because when I see The Who, I've always thought of The Who as being one of the first bands to be a very explosive band, even though on stage they're very explosive, especially with Peter Way and the drummer who recently passed away.
Keith Moon on the drums.
Oh yeah, Keith Moon. They were really, really, really out there,
Yeah.
especially live.
And let's not
Next up-
forget, without the Who, there would be no Marshall amps.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Because
Yes.
Pete
And there would be
Townsend
no
helped out.
And there would be
bringing
no
out the-
CSI. I mean, how many CSI TV shows use the Who songs?
Who are you? Yep.
You don't
Next-
get fooled again.
Next up, I have the Police.
Oh yeah.
For the influence that they did have on new wave, will eventually inspire bands like the Cars, Blondie. I mean, that kind of pop mixed with rock,
Power
kinda
pop.
power pop mixed in. I mean, eventually it helped Sting, the singer, not the wrestler.
Yeah, let's make sure about that.
Yeah, become a mega artist. To this day, I appreciate a lot. Next up, an influencer on the prog rock side, Genesis.
Oh yeah.
If I included rock bands, they would have been on my list for sure.
A lot of people
As well.
A lot of people have the big debate between Peter Gabriel and Phil Collins. And I'm more of a Phil Collins guy, but I can appreciate what Peter Gabriel did for the band, especially his antics on stage, coming up dressed like a spaceman or a flower. Peter Gabriel's one of those guys.
Or doing weird stage antics like pretending to be a lawnmower with like
In
a
a way,
weed
in
in
a
his
way
mouth.
that's all started by one of Bruce Dickinson's main influence, Arthur Brown.
Yep.
Yeah, which eventually you can see Peter Gabriel inspire people like Alice Cooper, inspired Kiss, that shock rock aesthetic of it. So I think the Genesis only for the influence on the aesthetics, but the progressive rock to eventually become influenced to bands like Opeth, bands like early
Rush.
Iron Maiden, bands like UFO.
Influential to Rush as well.
Yeah.
And not
I'm
to
almost
mention,
done.
and then their 80s material being a little bit more pop oriented. It was still catchy stuff. But yeah, like you say with Phil Collins. I like Phil Collins, but in terms of the era, definitely more of a Peter Gabriel guy because I like the more expansive stuff. But Phil Collins being on drums at the same time made for a perfect musical match.
Yeah. Next up,
Listen
I
to
have
Supper's Ready if you want proof of this. I recommend everybody watching, listen to Supper's Ready by Genesis. 23 minutes of sheer musical bliss.
Next up, I have The Cure. For the influence that they had on Gothic rock and eventually Gothic metal in Britain, which leads up to my honorable mention, My Dying Bride.
Oh yeah.
My Dying.
In a way, I also had originally in my honorable mentions before I went to in the metal scene. I had also originally Susie and the Banshees also on my honorable mentions list as well, and I also was going to put Pink Floyd on my list as well. But as I said, I went more rock. I went rock and metal, and I'll mention I was going to put here Queen, but like I said, I went full on metal here.
Yeah.
That's what
So
I
with
did.
with My Dying Bride, the reason I put them on honorable mentions is that from the Peaceville 3 being My Dying Bride, Paradise Lost, and Anathema. My Dying Bride has always been my favorite. Paradise Lost a close second. Anathema, I'm sorry. I love your early stuff, but after the 2000 stuff, as Artur says, Posa. But not my cup of tea. But the thing I like about My Dying Bride is that they have this thing of sadness that they bring to Death's Doom, and they just, with the violence and all that, they get the atmosphere just right, especially with the new release, the Ghost of Orion, which is a phenomenal album, which will be on my album of the year list. And when we do the list, they're just great. And the last two bands, I have Saxon and
Oh no.
Def Leppard.
Oh, okay.
The reason I have Def Leppard here is for the influence that they had on not only the new album side, but eventually forefathers that will become the glam metal with bands like Van Halen, Quiet Riot, Twisted Sister, Motley Crue, Poison, you name it. They were one of the few bands that influenced that scene. And with Saxon, the reason I have Saxon on the list is they're one of the most underrated British bands of new album.
And consistent, too.
Oh, yeah, they're consistent. They still kick ass, even if they're, like, old already. They're still fucking kick ass. Bill is one of the greatest British vocalists out there. It's just an amazing thing that Saxon has been able to keep a fan base this long after, the lawsuits, the different Saxons, and everything in between. Mm-hmm. Saxon, one of the greatest British bands to ever come out of the UK, but I had to put them in my honorable mentions.
Well, now that we've done your lists, our honorable mentions, I should say, now it's time to get into the nitty-gritty, the actual top 10. I shall go ahead and go through my list to get it over with. Starting at number 10, I went with Paradise Lost.
They're higher on my list.
I mean, Paradise Lost, as you brought up, the Peaceville 3, even though my personal Peaceville 3 is Paradise Lost, Dark Throne, and Autopsy, but that's another issue altogether. But out of the traditional Peaceville 3 of My Dying Bride, Paradise Lost, and Anathema, Paradise Lost was my favorite. After all, you listen to that first album, Lost Paradise, so Autopsy inspired, playing Death Doom the way they did. Then you get to Gothic, where it's still very much a Death Doom album, but then you get to Shades of God. You start to hear them move away from the Death Doom sound, and then you get to Icon and Draconian Times. Big influential albums on the Gothic metal scene, along with, say, Bloody Kisses by Typo Negative, anything from Theater of Tragedy around this time, The Gathering. But yeah, when you listen to, especially those two albums, Icon and Draconian Times, you listen to Nick Holmes' vocals, he's almost like another version of James Hetfield. He's got such a nice snarl to his clean vocals while maintaining that more guttural approach from the early days. Sure, they went through a synth pop period afterwards, but since the mid-2000s, they've been gradually getting better and better. Now they've kind of gone back a little bit to their Death Doom roots while still keeping the Gothic influence alive.
Even the vocalist, and I'm
Nick Holmes is now in Bloodbath.
Nick Holmes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Even Nick Holmes, every time they perform So Much Is Lost, they always say, this is something from the Controversial Host album, which is their pop, Gothic album.
Yeah,
still good. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's still good. It's a good album. Just like I said, the pop thing kind of ruins it a bit, but it's still a great amazing album.
Yeah. But yeah, Paradise Lost at number 10. Number 9. 9 is and I know Artur's probably going to kill me for this, because I bet it's higher on his list. Bolt Thrower.
It's higher, yes.
But I mean, Bolt Thrower, when it comes to death metal, one of the most, arguably, along with Death, the most consistent death metal band of all time. Yeah, their sound has varied in different styles of death metal. Like, you get to the first two albums, there's a little bit of grind in there, but still death metal. Then you get to War Master, more straight up death metal. Fourth Crusade, bringing in some doom in there. And then the rest of the albums to follow had more groove to it.
For Victory, Mercenary, Honor, Pride,
Honor, Valor, Pride, and then finally For
Honor,
Those Once
Valor,
Loyal.
Pride, yeah. Which is still their last album to date. And I've heard somewhere that Bull Thrower was going to release a new album. I don't know if it was one of you that mentioned, or no, it was someone else, and said unless Carl Willits can get together with the rest of the guys and bring Joan as well, I don't think they're going to release another album.
No. Plus, they ended off on such a great album. I don't know unless they somehow could top it, I just don't. Hiccups, damn it. I just don't know if they could pull it off.
Very unlikely.
But you never know. Number 8. Good old Simpsons there. That wasn't as strong as it probably should have been. But number 8, the best thrash band to come out of the UK, Onslaught.
Yeah.
I mean Onslaught. I mean, you listen to their riffs. You could tell they were inspired by Metallica when it came to the riff writing. It's like vocally very different, very punky, some high notes, some great high notes by Cy Keeler, even though he's not in the band anymore for the new album, Generation Antichrist, which I need to check out. But Onslaught, I mean, like I said, you listen to the riffs. They are some of the best riffs you'll ever hear in thrash. You listen to songs like Let There Be Death, Metal Forces, Flame of the Antichrist. Demoniac is kind of like a heavier Dead Kennedy song. It is so good. And then they've been on a good comeback run since the late 2000s, since the thrash revival with Sounds of Violence, and now with Generation Antichrist. Of course, members have come and gone, but they're still one of the most important of the British scene. And hell, their album In Search of Sanity even had Steve Grimmett from Grim Reaper on vocals. Kind of goes to show you how they can pull back some of the old guard into their music. But yeah, Onslaught. If you like Metallica, you're going to dig Onslaught in terms of the riffs alone. Number 7... arguably the godfathers of extreme metal, Venom.
They're on my list as well.
They're on my list.
But yeah, Venom, I mean, Kronos, Abaddon, Mantis. All right there. The godfathers of extreme metal. Important on the emerging thrash, death, black metal scenes. Even grindcore as well, because a lot of grindcore bands were inspired by Venom. But yeah, I mean, you listen to those first 2 albums, Welcome to Hell and Black Metal, they named the genre, even though musically you could argue proto-black, but more of a speed metal band for the most part.
Even in league with Satan, which is basically just
at
3
war
or 4
with Satan.
songs.
Yeah.
At war with Satan. Yeah, In League with Satan is a song, but
yeah,
At War with Satan, that whole concept album, it's amazing.
Absolutely. And then even the album Possessed was pretty good too. And that was the last of the classic Venom. And now Venom, kind of a bit of a clusterfuck, because you got Venom and Venom Inc. Yeah, it's kind of like the Queensryche thing. It's a mess. But Venom...
Or the Entombed thing.
Yeah. But regardless, Venom still needs to get their respect due. I know a lot of people like to laugh at Venom because of how comical their lyrics were back in the day, all about Satan and stuff, but look at where it led. So was
Black Sabbath.
But it led to the emerging black metal genre that eventually came thanks to Bathory, taking Venom's influence, as much as Corthon wouldn't admit it. But Venom was a big inspiration on Bathory and helped to push everything Venom did, but make it into what we know as black metal.
Even a song from Venom is called Countess Bathory.
Exactly.
I mean, come on, Corson, we love you, but just admit it. You were a bit... Venom influenced you a lot.
Yes. Number 6, now we get into, in my opinion, the best of the best. The top 6. So number 6, I got an album right here. In my opinion, their best album, which was out in 2013, but I have to go Carcass. I mean, Carcass.
On my list.
They pretty much invented 2 subgenres, gore grind, and melodic death metal. You know, you start in their early career. As much as Jeff Walker, and I would kind of agree with them, I never saw them as straight up grindcore. Because they were not political. The only thing that had any aspect of political nature was the collage covers of Reek of Putrefaction and Symphonies of Sickness. But musically, they were far more extreme, far more brutal. Like, yeah, Reek of Putrefaction was the closest, in my opinion, they were to grindcore because 22 songs, very short. But it was more on the gore grind side where they brought in the pathological medical lyrics, where you would see bands like General Surgery, Regurgitate, Dead Infection, Early Exhumed, Early Impaled, kind of take that and run with it to even more extremes. But then you get to Symphonies of Sickness, more straight up death metal. Then you get to Necroticism, and that's when the seeds start getting planted in the development of melodic death metal, bringing in Michael Amott from Carnage on second guitar, bringing in more old school metal aspects, pushed even further with Hard Work. Then you get to Swan Song, where they brought in more rock and roll, but then you get to Surgical Steel, bringing back the lyrical nature of the early albums, but still keeping what they were starting with Hard Work and evolving it. And they're supposed to have a new album, Torn Arteries, coming out, hopefully whenever this stupidity is over with and we can get back to our normal everyday lives. Torn Arteries will come out, but we get an EP of theirs coming next month, which will be really exciting. But yeah, Carcass at number 6. Now we get into the top 5, and I'm going to start off number 5 with one of my early extreme metal loves. Without this band, I don't know how far I would have gotten into extreme metal, and that is Napalm Death.
Oh,
Because Napalm Death, one of the two godfathers of grindcore, along with Americans' Repulsion. But
I will admit one thing: Napalm Death and Carcass are on the same spot because, as I said, I'm going to put a whole lot of draws, a whole lot of ties in here, but it's very difficult to talk about one without talking the other. But please continue.
Thanks to Bill Steer being in both bands at the same time at one point.
Yeah, it's like if you talk about Metallica, you can't talk about Megadeth. They kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah. But with Napalm, I mean, you listen, particularly the first 3 albums, such legendary albums, and a different variety of extreme music. Scum, the A side, being a little bit more on the hardcore punk side of grind. B side being on the more metal side, more Celtic Frost inspiration. Then you get to From Enslavement to Obliteration, where they perfectly meld everything together, bringing in a little bit more of the death metal influence that would be involved in the remainder of their career. But then this album, Harmony Corruption, in my opinion, still their best album, where they went to more sound, better produced, way more, just more of a death metal album with grind elements. And the best lineup of the band of all time, Barney Greenway, Shane Embry, Jesse Pintado, Mitch Harris, and Mick Harris. No lineup will ever touch it. It was a 1-album lineup, but it was a brilliant lineup, and it was an amazing album. And of course, they've evolved over the years afterwards. Like throughout the 90s, they incorporated more traditional death metal and groove elements into their sound. Then the 2000s come around, they go back to the grind, but retaining death metal elements. And I believe they're releasing their new album in 2 days. So I look forward to checking out what Napalm Death's been up to since 5 years ago. But yeah, Napalm Death, Godfathers of Grind, Death Grind even. Can't go wrong with Napalm. Say what you will about their political nature, but musically, one of the most important bands to come out since the 80s. Now the top 4, very obvious, but number 4, I gotta go Motorhead. Because Lemmy, rest in peace, I still can't believe he's gone, but yeah.
The original lineup: Eddie, Fast Eddie Clark, and Filthy Animal Taylor.
Absolutely. I mean, Overkill, Bomber, Ace of Spades, Iron Fist, classics. And then you get to other more underappreciated albums like I'm trying to remember what was the album title for 83. I think it was like Another Perfect Day, I believe, where they had Brian Robertson from Thin Lizzy on guitar. And that's a great album. And then Orgasmatron pushing it even further. And they still put out
Sacrifice.
Still put
Mhm.
out some great albums throughout the remainder of the run.
Yeah.
And of course,
And it-
of us being wrestling fans, if it wasn't for Triple H, I don't know if I would have gotten into Motorhead because, you know, The Game, King of Kings, Lion in the Sand.
Mhm.
Despite being wrestling theme songs, you could put those in like a list of like the best metal songs of all time and I wouldn't feel wrong. Because they're
Nope.
good,
I mean-
amazing songs.
Yeah. Anything Lemmy has done, pure gold.
Yeah.
Even that one song that he did with that Dave Grohl
Probot.
supergroup Probot,
Yeah.
that's a classic.
Mhm.
Absolutely. No, now we're getting into the top 3, and I'm going to start number 3 off with Judas Priest. I mean,
Fuck you.
let me guess. Number 1? Or number
Yep.
2? Oh, okay.
Oh shit! Really?
Well, anyways, but yeah, Priest. I mean, what else can you say about Priest? One of the founding fathers of metal. Proper metal. Like, yes, Sabbath invented it, but Priest perfected it on Sad Wings of Destiny. But Painkiller's still my favorite, where they went mostly full on speed. And, I mean, Rob Halford, the metal god. Enough said. Number 2.
KK Downing and Glenn Tipton,
Yep,
the
Ian
dual
Hill.
guitar gods.
Yep, Ian Hill, underrated bassist, and then any drummer they've had has been great, but Scott Travis is the guy. And the lone American in the band. Currently, at least. Yeah,
Scott
they had
Travis.
Ripper Owens, but still. Now we're getting in the top 2. Now this was where it got tough for me, because it's like, do I go with objective opinion, or do I go pure bias? But for this, I went for the objective route, which is why at number 2 is Sabbath.
They're also number 2 with another band.
But yeah, I mean, Sabbath, as I just brought up, the godfathers of heavy metal, the guys who invented it in the right way. First album, you know, you start off with the song Black Sabbath. Not only are you starting metal, but you're also starting doom. And then eventually Sabbath without Sabbath, dabbling into different styles of their songwriting. Who knows if other subgenres would have come about. We probably would not have traditional metal, we wouldn't have doom, we wouldn't have stoner, we wouldn't have sludge, we wouldn't have thrash, we wouldn't have prog, if it wasn't for Sabbath. So yeah, Black Sabbath, all hail Ozzy, Tony, Geezer, and Bill, and of course Dio,
Glenn Hughes.
Ian
Tony
Gillan,
Martin.
Tony Martin. Yeah, even Brad Wilk from Rage Against the Machine did an amazing job on their final album. So
Cozy Powell.
Cozy
On-
Powell,
he played on-
yes.
Yeah.
But now that brings me to number 1, and this is where it was. Yeah, number 1, Maiden. I mean, Maiden, arguably the greatest metal band of all time. Without Maiden, so much wouldn't have happened. You know, new wave of British heavy metal. Say goodbye if it wasn't for Maiden. Thrash. No. Prog metal. No. Power metal. No. Gotta thank Iron Maiden for the development of everything to come after them. And for me, favorite album still gotta be Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. Keeping the rawness of their old style alive while while adding in epic orchestration aspects, some progressive influence, symphonic stuff, keyboards, acoustic guitars. I mean, Moonchild through to Only a Good Die Young. And of course, you can't go wrong with the classics, the self-titled, Killers with Paul Di'Anno, Number of the Beast, Peace of Mind, Power Slave, and then even some of the modern stuff could be up there with the classics like Brave New World and Book of Souls. So,
Yep.
Can't go wrong with Iron Maiden, arguably the greatest metal band in the history of the genre. And Bruce Dickinson, arguably the greatest vocalist in metal. Or top 5 at the very least. So that's my 10. Wow. Now let's get to Artur's top 10.
I think we're missing Hannah's list.
Oh yeah, we can do Hannah's list real fast. So Hannah,
Yeah.
for honorable mentions, she had Deep Purple, Beatles, Rolling Stones, Queen, and then for the underground stuff, Esoteric, Orange Goblin, Winter Filleth, Akercocke, Wooden's Throne, Carcass, and Solstice. Now for her actual top 10, she has Finn, which is like a black folk band. Paradise Lost, of course. Electric Wizard.
Yep.
Then a tie for number 7, she has Judas Priest and Led Zeppelin. Number 6, Seor. Number 5, Fields of Nephilim. Or
Niflheim, yeah.
Niflheim, yeah. Number 4, Motorhead and Venom tied. Number 3, Iron Maiden. Number 2, Black Sabbath. And number 1, Pink Floyd. And just to clarify, when I did my list, I went with strictly metal, because if I included, like, Stones, Zeppelin, Purple, Pink Floyd, my list would have been way too long. But
Exactly the same. It's exactly the same case as mine.
yeah. But anyways, now let's get into Artur's list. And actually, I need to go take a leak, so I will be right back.
So, I'll repeat later my top 10. At number 10, I have Def Leppard. I mean, Pyromania and Hysteria, some of the 2 most sold records in the world. And the story of Def Leppard is amazing, especially Rick Allen's story when he lost the drummer when he lost his arm, and he had to relearn, especially playing with the feet. And I know that they don't want to be named British bands; they want to be named just a band from Britain, but they are from Britain, and they are a British heavy metal band. Enough said.
Yeah.
Number 9, I have both Evil, for the reasons that have already been mentioned, and I have one of the godfathers of industrial metal that I found out that are from Britain, more specifically from the metal capital of the world, Birmingham, Godflesh.
Honorable mention.
The running gag continues. Number 8. Yep. It's my. I said when we were talking that I was going to put punk bands here in my list. So I've put 3, which are essential. I've put the Sex Pistols, I've put the Clash, and the Damned in the.
I come back and I hear the classic punks.
Yes. And number 10, I've put Def Leppard. Number 9 is one of my first ties between Evil and Godflesh.
Oh, I forgot about Godflesh. Shit.
Number
Honorable
7.
mention?
I knew it. The gag continues. Number 7. I told Levi about this, but you cannot talk about one without mentioning the other. Napalm Death and Carcass. I've put them on the same. And even though I prefer Carcass more than I prefer Napalm Death, but I still enjoy I still enjoy both extreme metal bands.
Yeah.
Number 6. Number 6, I have Paradise Lost, that has been already mentioned, and along with Black Sabbath, one of the other founding members of the doom metal genre, Witchfinder General. Although Cathedral can also be here as well, but
Cathedral, damn it.
But Cathedral can be on honorable mentions as well.
Yeah.
Number 5. These ones I have to mention. If you want old school extreme metal, you cannot go wrong with both Venom and Bolt Thrower. I mean, Venom that invented somewhat the term black metal, and Bolt Thrower is still to this day one of my favorite bands of all time. which still pisses me off that Sam never mentioned it in the death metal list as well. I'll not let go of that gripe.
I can tell. I can definitely tell if we get Sam done on the show, you're going to really hound him on that.
And I'm going to out another former contributor of Banger TV, Natalie Zed, for saying that Malakesh is folk metal. Blow me.
Oh, Artur.
Number 4, I have Lord Dio and I have Lord Dio, Lord Blackmore, and Rainbow. I mean,
Well,
you want to talk about the burgeoning power metal genre? How can you not listen to Rising and not think of demons, wizards, knights, and fairy tales and all
Exactly.
mm-hmm.
that? Number 3, I have the main new album bands. I have Maiden, of course, one of the main influences for me to listen to heavy metal, which I could have easily put on number 1. Saxon, like Cancer, one of the most underrated bands in the whole new album genre. And, of course, Lemmy and the Boys, Motorhead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Number 2, I've put one of the best bands of all time in terms of rock, Led Zeppelin. I mean, Immigrant Song, rock and roll, Stairway to Heaven, still
Moby Dick.
prohibited to these days to be played in music stores all over. Which still to this day, I haven't found the reason for why. And of course, Sabbath. I mean, Sabbath is Sabbath. Without Sabbath, probably no metal would be known whatsoever.
Absolutely.
And number 1, which has already been mentioned, is Judas Priest. I mean, yes, I could have put here Maiden as well, which I could have put here Maiden as well, because there were major influences to me as a young heavy metal listener. I mean, Screaming for Vengeance and Power Slave are some of my favorite albums of all time. So easily they could have been here number 1. But Priest, mostly because they're a first wave band that later got mixed up with the new wave of British heavy metal stuff, especially when they launched the classic albums Killing Machine, British Steel, Screaming for Vengeance, and of course Destroyers of the Faith. But then they launched Turbo, which was a big letdown, and then they came back with Ram It Down and Painkiller. That's not a comeback. That's a tour de force.
Yeah.
And that's why Priest is my number 1. But Maiden can be here on top as well.
Yeah. And also could change as well. Like someday I might have Sabbath at 1, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Ricky, the floor is yours before we try and piece together the final 10.
Woo! All right. So let me start again. My number 10, Archer mentioned them already. I have the Sex Pistols. The reason I have the Sex Pistols at number 10 is that there's always been this big debate. Who invented punk first? Was it the Sex Pistols or was it the Ramones? I mostly go for the Ramones, but for the Sex Pistols, it's something about the Sex Pistols that always captivates me because they've only done one album.
Yeah.
Just one. And it's regarded as
Never
probably
mind.
one.
No, 2. They've made a second one, which was The Great Rock and Roll Swindle.
Oh yeah, but at terms of the Sex Pistols, that first album is regarded as probably one of the best punk albums in ever, and especially being that Sid Vicious, who tragically passed away very young, I think it was early 20s,
Yeah.
which was incredibly young. I'm just imagining what he could have done if he would have stayed a bit longer. I mean, who knows? Maybe
And
the
gotten
whole punk
off the
scene,
drugs and shit.
yeah, who knows? Maybe the whole punk scene could have been different. The landscape of punk. Number 9, I have Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd has always been one of those bands that always is a state of mind because you can listen to every single Pink Floyd album and have different interpretation of what they're talking about. At first, it started more of a psychedelic band, which at the core they still are.
Yeah.
Pink Floyd have influenced progressive music, have influenced a lot of pop influences, but
Experimental avant-garde shit.
oh yeah, experimental. They're one of the most experimental bands out there. Especially we have albums like Animals, The Wall, Dark Side of the Moon. I could just go on and about Pink Floyd, about the influence they had on Britain. Number 8, burp. I had to put them. I had to put Queen.
Yeah.
Same thing with Pink Floyd. Queen is one of those bands that defines so many subgenres. You have eventually speed metal, pop, hard rock, heavy metal, progressive music, especially the progressive music with their second album, Queen 2. It's so very progressive that they had to triple track, double track, quadruple track the tracks to make it more progressive. And I like the story that Brian May brings when they're recording News of the World in 1977. The next door to them was the Sex Pistols. and he tells a story about how Freddie Mercury calls Sid Vicious by his actual name, and Sid kind of freaks the fuck out. So it's kind of one of those weird things that
The story, especially in the later years of Freddie Mercury being with AIDS, and still managed to record possibly one of the best Queen albums of all time, called Innuendo, and with the classical and with a masterpiece such as The Show Must Go On.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I forgot also to mention that at number 5, many people will not like this, but I have put Cradle of Filth here in it for being one of the innovators of the more recent black metal genre. Despite what many people say about the symphonic stuff, the gothic aspect and all that, but here's the thing. Danny Filth is a visionary and one of the most intellectual people that you'll ever know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing about Queen, I mean, who hasn't not heard Bohemian Rhapsody in their car and done the typical Wayne's World scene?
Gag.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's that's one of the things that we're gonna have to do whenever we meet up. We have to do the whole Wayne's World Bohemian
That'd be
Rhapsody
funny
scene.
as hell. And real quick, and now that you brought up the song "The Show Must Go On," that I would compare it in terms of like a final lasting memory song to like Johnny Cash doing 9 Inch Nails' "Heard," and the way the song "Ordinary Man" by Ozzy on the new Ozzy album kind of gives it that kind of feel to it as well.
Kind of
epitaph.
Yeah, kind of like his last goodbye. Number 7. I have Motorhead. I mean, Motorhead is Lemmy, Fast Eddie Clark, and Filthy for Animal Taylor. And you can add Wurzel also to the list, and Mickey
Phil
D
Campbell and Mickey D.
and Phil Campbell to the but your original 3, the 3 amigos, Lemmy, Eddie, and Phil. One of the pioneers bands that not only influenced a lot of punk, because at the first album was very punky. It helped the way for punk fans get into metal.
Yep.
And also metal fans get into punk. Same thing with almost like with the first Battery album. It's kind of a bit punky, but still having that aggressive-ness.
Yeah.
But come on, I mean,
and not to
classic.
mention, without Motorhead, there is no speed or thrash metal as well, because they paved the way for bands to play fast, especially on double bass. Thank you, Phil Taylor, for... Well, I mean, there were people doing the double bass before, but not to the level that Phil did in the beginning.
Yeah. But you also have to mention about this that, like, I mean, you have classics like Ace of Spades, Bomber, Overkill, Orgasmatron, Iron Fist. Even the newest stuff is still good. I mean, let me doing a cover of I think it was a Rolling Stone song, "Sympathy for the Devil."
Yeah.
I mean, oh come on, it's still great cover. I mean,
even Motorhead doing a cover of Metallica's "Whiplash" on the
yeah.
Yeah.
That got him a Grammy as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even at times when Motorhead does a ballad, it's still Motorhead. I mean, you have the song 1916.
Yeah.
You have
God Was Never on Your Side.
Yeah, I mean, but who could ever forget that epic Hellraiser video with Lemmy playing cards with Pinhead himself and beating his ass?
Absolutely.
One of the if that sounds better enough, I don't know what it is.
Right.
And let's not forget another song that's still best one with the best video, Whorehouse Blues.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
And if you don't know what that is, you're probably too young.
Yeah.
So number 6, I have Venom. Again, one of those pioneer bands that helped become black metal. Yeah, some people call them proto black metal because you have albums like Run Through the Hell, Black Metal, War with Satan, Possessed. The newer stuff is kind of okay, but I mean, you have Kronos, you have Mantis, you have Abaddon, the original trio that run wild all over Britain. They were originally part of the new album, even though Abaddon kind of says that they were wanting to step away from the new album. They want to be more satanic, which eventually inspired bands like DSI with the whole satanic aspect.
Slayer, especially.
Oh yeah, Slayer especially. And I mean, at the time, Venom was probably one of the most scariest bands to listen to because you thought, are they actually Satanists? Are they just fucking around? Eventually,
And of course, we know they're fucking around.
Yeah.
Just to be like, how absurd can we go with this?
Yeah, but it went to the point that. But then. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. I was gonna say, but then you have some people that really took it to core, like the Norwegians. We know what happened in their Norwich in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And let's not forget the imagery that later was portrayed by bands like Napalm Death and Carcass.
Mm-hmm.
That the imagery went from cartoony satanic to real corpses.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to say, Quarson, again, I love you, but just
if only he was around, yeah.
If you were around, I would have said you were inspired by Venom. I mean, the goat, the name Bastard comes from the
and
song,
some of the song
Countess
titles on the
Bathory.
first 2 albums, yeah. But
Oh,
it
man,
is what it is.
But still, hell better than Quarson. My number 5, I have the first of 2 ties. I have both Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple. Led Zeppelin, it's always been one of those weird bands that always have that erotic side to them. I mean, you have Robert Plant, the front man that does a lot of kind of sexual moves on stage and makes girls go crazy, especially when he has spandex. You can see his junk.
Yep.
And girls go crazy all over him. I mean, when you have a song called The Lemon Song and it says, "Squeeze me, baby, into the last drop," you kind of get the idea.
Yep.
But also,
maybe back then they wouldn't have gotten it, but nowadays, yeah.
Yeah, but not only that, you have one of the greatest guitarists. You have Jimmy Page,
yep.
Which, oh my god, when he plays Stairway to Heaven and all those the classics, I just go crazy. Yeah, John Paul.
And let's not forget, Robert Plant could scream like a goddamn banshee. I mean, Immigrant Song, anyone?
Yep.
Oh.
Many people have tried that shout. It's imitated but never duplicated.
And let's not forget one of the best drummers in the history of rock, and John Bonham.
Mm-hmm.
John Bonham.
I was just about to bring John Bonham, one of the greatest drummers of all time. John Paul Jones,
very underrated
bassist and pianist. And then with Deep Purple, oh my god! I mean, with Deep Purple, it's a whole story because you have Deep Purple eventually created Rainbow, which you can say created Dio, but Deep Purple, again, one of those founding members of the first British scene that will later eventually, have people like David Coverdale in Burn, Ian Gillan, of course, the front man. You have Glenn Hughes, John Lord, God rest his soul, one of the greatest pianists, keyboardists in the world.
Yep.
I mean, as a guitarist, every time I go to Guitar Center, there's always that one person who plays Smoke on the Water. And that's how much.
And also Ian Pace, one of the great drummers as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the only member to have been in the band from the beginning to now.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
But Smoke on the Water, you can arguably say one of the greatest metal songs of all time. If you have it really high on the list, I wouldn't argue it because it is a great song.
And arguably the greatest riff in the history of music.
That's debatable. Overrated, played so much, yes, but
Yes.
still kick ass.
Yeah.
Kick ass. Number 4, I have Judas Priest. Judas Priest has always been one of those bands that at the beginning they started more of a hard rock, but it wasn't until probably my close to second favorite Priest album, Sad Wings of Destiny, that they actually went full on heavy metal. When you have a song like Dream Deceiver,
Yes,
that mystic intro,
that pretty much helped to create progressive metal in a sense.
yeah, and
The
especially
Ripper.
oh yeah,
The
and
Ripper.
especially the Ripper, especially Rob Halford. I mean, come on, he's the metal god. Even at the time chicks wanted to be with him, even though we know at the time he was gay. Chicks wanted to be him. Guys wanted to be him.
Yeah.
I mean, for all we know,
The infamous pins. I got whipped by Alfred.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I wish I could have been in the '80s and see Priest live. I mean,
With their
but come on.
massive stage shows, yeah.
Oh yeah. Not only that, you have probably the greatest guitar duo next to Adrian Smith
And Dave Murray. And Janet Hughes now, yeah.
You have KK and Glenn Tipton, two of the best dual guitarists in the world.
That helped to pioneer the dual twin lead guitar approach that eventually
Mhm.
Thin Lizzy would do, and then Maiden would do.
Yeah, and they could read themselves like a book on stage. Like they could just improvise, and just they could read themselves because with Priest is one of those bands that help the new album scene, even though they were not really new album, but still they get some credit for new album.
Yeah.
Number 3, I have a tie. The two biggest bands that I think came from the first British invasion: Rolling Stones and the Beatles. The Beatles, I mean, come on, they're the Beatles. You have John Lennon, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, George Harris. If it weren't for that Ed Sullivan show in the 50s, they would have never broken America. Plus, I mean, the Beatles are one of those bands that, with the time, they changed their sound a lot. From the blues to classic rock to psychedelic to concept albums. Through everything, the Beatles are probably one of the most influential bands in the world. Not only that, after the Beatles broke up, all 4 of them had 4 successful solo careers, especially John Lennon and Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
But especially John with that Imagine song, which is probably his biggest hit ever. With the Rolling Stones are, I always think of the Rolling Stones kind of like the opposite of the Beatles, because the Beatles were more innocent, the Rolling Stones were really rebels.
Yeah.
Talk about a band that had their logo as a tongue. Says a lot.
Yeah.
Especially during the 70s, 60s, where they did a lot of crazy stuff. Especially Keith Richards. I mean, I'm surprised has not died.
I know. Yeah, with
I
all the
mean,
drugs he did, yeah.
I mean, the amount of blow he did to the point that he sniffed his father's ashes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's so legendary that you think, how the fuck he's not dead? That's to show the power of Rolling Stones. Still kicking ass, even though people are saying they're leaving mummies. I mean, you have Mick Jagger, one of the greatest frontmen, Keith Richards, one of the greatest guitarists. The whole band of the genre is one of the best British bands in the world.
Who took inspiration from a Muddy Waters song.
Mm-hmm. Now, number 1 and number 2. This is where I had the trouble with in choosing. I could have gone with the obvious one, and I could have gone with what was in my heart. In my heart, I knew they were one of the best bands, probably the best, but I could not put them at number 1 because I think number 1 is superior in influence. So at number 2, Iron Maiden. Maiden. I mean, we've talked about Maiden so much. I mean, whenever you bring up the greatest bands in the world, Iron Maiden is always there. Not only, but then you have 3 successful eras. You have the Diano era, you have the Dickinson era, And as much as people don't like Bruce Bailey, those two albums
Blaze
are
Bailey.
good.
Yeah.
They're good albums in their right.
Virtual 11, maybe not as much, but X Factor, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
X Factor is darker. It's gloomier. It's a whole lot better than.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot better than Virtual 11.
Yeah, and like I said,
Virtual
Iron
11 has 2, maybe 3 songs most. Whereas whereas the X Factor still has a lot more songs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to this day, even if you've seen Iron Maiden a billion times, you still get that excitement when you see Eddie come out and just wreak havoc. You're like, oh my God, it's Eddie! Because believe it or not, Eddie's probably the biggest mascot in metal history.
Yes.
Next to probably the Warpick from Motorhead.
Or Vic
And Big
Rattlehead of Megadeth.
And
He's
Big
called
Rattlesnake.
Snaggletooth. He's called Snaggletooth.
Oh. Well, I don't know. I thought it was Warpick, but Iron Maiden is Iron Maiden. Hell Steve, hell Bruce, hell Dave Murray, hell Cliff
Adrian
Barr,
Smith,
everybody
Janet
from
Gears,
everybody,
Clive Burr, Nico McBrain.
everybody.
Yeah.
Number 1, it's the obvious one. We're in the shirt.
Yep.
Black Sabbath. Without Black Sabbath, nothing that we're talking about would ever happen.
Yeah.
There would have been no Iron Maiden. There would have been no Judas Priest. No thrash metal, no progressive metal, no death metal, no black metal. Nothing would have existed without Black Sabbath. Sure, some people still debate to the day that Ozzy or Nothing or the Dio era, which first of all, they're both great singers, but Ozzy ain't Sabbath, Dio ain't Sabbath, Ward ain't Sabbath, Butler and Iommi are Sabbath, since they were the only 2 consistent members throughout the entire history of Sabbath until the very end in 2013, 2014, which I don't know why. I'm actually thinking they're going to do a reunion show, but
I mean, they've not thrown out that idea of doing like a one-off gig here and there. And as Sam Dunn said, here's an idea. Do one more reunion show and bring Ward back.
Exactly. Or at least bring Bill Ward at least for the final song.
Yeah, at least.
At least.
And let it be War Pigs be the final song.
Oh, yeah. Or
Black Sabbath.
Or Paranoid. Any of those 3. But like I said, yeah.
I think more Black Sabbath because it's a slower song, and I don't think Bill has the endurance for a fast song like Paranoid.
Yeah, but hell Black Sabbath, hell Dio, Black Sabbath is the Immortals. They're the best.
So now that we've got through all of our lists, now it's time for the hard part to put together the final top 10. I think it's safe to say the top 3 are locks, Maiden, Priest, and Sabbath, but just where is the question. I would agree. I would go against my judgment. I would go with Sabbath at number 1.
Yeah, I would go with Sabbath as number 1 too.
I agree.
All right, so we got Sabbath at number 1. I would go with Maiden at 2.
Yeah,
and then Priest at 3. Now the real work begins. The rest of the list.
I think at number 4 will have to be Motorhead.
Yeah, I would agree.
Motorhead number 4, and then number 5.
Number 5, if we want to throw in rock bands, then I could see putting like Zeppelin or Purple or Pink Floyd at number 5.
I would say more Zeppelin because it's more common in all of our lists.
I would say more Zeppelins, being that like Zeppelin, even though they don't like be considered heavy metal.
You can't deny they were a Godfather band.
Yeah. So those are top 5: Sabbath, Maiden, Priest, Motorhead, and Zeppelin.
All right. So now for the rest of the top 10.
I will suggest for number 6, which I think we all have in our lists. Why not Venom?
Yes.
Yeah, we could put Venom at number 6, considering they were very important.
They go with Venom.
I think for number 7, I'm almost certain. I feel like we should go with Napalm for number 7.
But here's the thing: if you go with Napalm, you can't go with Carcass.
Well, Carcass we could put in there as well. I don't know. I just feel like with Napalm.
What? Why not like we did, like I did it on my list? Number 7, Napalm and Carcass.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be better.
Yeah, because they
Carcass and Napalm
both
number 7.
bands did forge two separate paths within extreme music, with Napalm doing the more grindcore political stuff, and then Carcass doing the more gory grind, and then eventually creating melodic death metal. And not to mention the early days, Bill Steer being in both bands at the same time at one point. Yeah, I could go with that. So at number 7, Napalm and Carcass. I feel as though for number 8, if we want to include a prog band, I'd feel like we'd have to go Pink Floyd.
Yeah,
to go into
Pink
that
Floyd
mix.
for sure. Because if we wouldn't have Pink Floyd, Hannah would have sent the German army after us.
Yeah, and on top of that, you wouldn't have the remaining prog bands that came after, like Genesis and Yes and so on.
Yeah, now here's the top part, number 9 and number 10.
Yeah, who would be the 2 remaining bands that could go in?
I mean, depends. If you want to go with influence on different subgenres, I would go with probably Rainbow.
Yeah, I could live with that.
Rainbow number 9.
I could live with Rainbow. Now, number 10, now here's where it's going to be tough, because do we want to include more Nawabum bands? Do we want to put in another death metal one? Do we want to put in, like, Cradle? What do we do here?
Cradle, no. I don't think Cradle, even though Cradle are great, I don't think they're considered one of probably the best. I mean, you're influential, but they're not there.
Yeah.
I would say
I would be thinking perhaps, like, if we were to go based on helping to invent 2 subgenres, I think we'd have to go with either My Dying Bride or Paradise Lost.
I'm torn between those 2 and Bolt Thrower, because
Bolt Thrower could be in there too, considering their consistency and
say what you will about Bolt Thrower. They helped in reinventing. Death metal.
But they were forgetting about the Beatles. I mean, without the Beatles,
if we want to include
that,
like another outside metal style, whether it be punk or the old '60s stuff. Yeah, I even though I'm not the biggest Beatles fan, I guess we should go with the Beatles.
I'm not either. I'm not either.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, the Beatles, and I'm gonna put a very important disclaimer that this is my opinion and my opinion only.
Yeah.
I don't like the Beatles. Never liked them. I thought that their music was corny and it was repetitive. But I can respect everything that they did for music. I mean, from Sgt. Pepper, for some of their songs like Hey Jude, Yellow Submarine, Yesterday, and all that stuff. I can respect them, but if you want to criticize me for hating the Beatles, do it. I'm more Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple than I'll ever be Beatles.
Same here.
Or we could go with Def Leppard.
I would rather have Def Leppard up there than the Beatles. That's a shocking controversy, I know, but
yeah,
it's just
that is
personal
shocking.
preference.
First time in doing this new concept, we're gonna hear Horsemen Podcast not putting the Beatles in their list. Shocking.
I know.
I mean.
So what?
I know.
Yeah.
I know. But I know.
That one was mentioning. So what? We haven't mentioned it. Blitzkrieg. We did not mention Blitzkrieg.
DK pulled out T-Rex, which was really cool.
We did not mention Converge too.
Converge is an American band.
I thought they were British, but
no.
My bad.
Yeah.
But we still did not mention Blitzkrieg. We did not mention a whole lot of other bands. So
yeah, but I'm torn between Def Leppard, Saxon.
You know what? I want to make the final executive decision. I think we should give more respect to the Nawabum scene. I say we put Saxon up there.
Yeah.
Here.
Because they've been so consistent and they've been so influential. So I think we should go Saxon.
And still to this day, very underrated, like cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now our final top 10. At number 10 we have Saxon. Number 9 we have. Who did we put at number 9?
What was number 9? Shit.
Oh, fuck.
But let's go from the top. Top
Okay,
bottom.
number 1, Black Sabbath. Number 2, Iron
Yep.
Maiden. Number 3, Judas Priest. Number 4,
Yep.
Motorhead. Number 5, Led Zeppelin. You know what? Let's put
Yes.
Purple next to them so we can have a second
Yeah.
tie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Purple and Zeppelin together.
Number 6, Venom.
Mhm.
7,
Yes.
Napalm Death and Carcass.
Yeah.
Number 8,
Yes.
Rainbow.
Mhm.
Yes.
Number 9,
Pink Floyd. It was
it was Pink Floyd.
Pink Floyd.
And
Yeah.
then number 10, Saxon.
And number 10, Saxon.
Yeah.
So that
With
is
a few
our
honorable mentions.
Bolt
With an
Thrower,
honorable mention, Bolt Thrower.
Bolt
honorable
Thrower,
mentions, yeah.
Def Leppard,
The
Cradle,
Beatles.
Beatles, Stones, so many.
Yeah. But those are the top 10.
Our
definitive
final,
10.
the definitive top 10. The first definitive one, I think it's a good one. I think it's a really good one because it covers a variety of different genres and eras. So there you go. But anyways, thank you guys for watching episode 40, and also last time, thank you to Daniel Dekay for coming in. The door is always open for you to come back anytime you're available to. It just depends on the topic and so on and so forth. But anyways,
Yes.
I have to hurry up and get some grass
Next
mowing
up,
done before
yeah.
I go to work. But real quick note for our next episode, speaking of Black Sabbath, it's top 10 Black Sabbath songs.
Ooh.
That's going to be hard, but we shall see what happens. But anyways, horns high, and we'll see you hopefully in a couple of weeks.